Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I kind of lost my groove last week because I had final assessments and I was very busy, but I'm back. And today I thought it'd be fun to actually do an introduction video on who I am, what this channel's about, where my content is gonna go. And I thought it'd be fun because it is Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. and I kind of want to challenge myself to film in the week and then edit it and then post it towards the end of the week. So I think this will be fun because my previous videos, it has been very vulnerable, and don't get me wrong, I love vulnerability, but like maybe it's time because it's been like 5 videos and I think it's time to do an introduction. So yeah, let's get started. So as I said, I have about 6 videos on this channel, 5 or 6, and I haven't introduced myself at least once. Honestly, in hindsight, I feel like it's very on brand for me because I always forget. So today we're fixing that and you can get to know me more intimately. So as I said, my name is Angie, I'm 25, and this is my channel called Jejak Anggrek. So you might be thinking, what is that name? What does it mean? Why did you choose that name? And honestly, it came to me because I actually had an assignment last year where I had to post my graphic design stuff because it was a graphic design class and I had to post it on Instagram and I didn't want to post it on my main. So I decided to make another Instagram for my little art stuff. I honestly haven't done much because again, I've just been so busy because I'm balancing my course with a job, so it's kind of a lot, but I honestly really enjoy making content. And in the past I've made makeup videos and that kind of stuff, and I decided to kind of delve into long form because I think I was really scared to do short form, and I honestly still am because of the fact that I yap a lot, as you can tell, but I also feel like I'm not interesting enough which I know is like very like unserious, but a part of me just doesn't know how I want to approach short form because it's so like, I don't know, sometimes I just feel like it's so clickbaity, and again, it's not all. It's nice to have content in like bite-sized pieces, but I enjoy the sort of intimacy of spending time with someone for a little bit, you know, and I've been doing it for, you know, a couple months now and it's been great. And I've been doing like 10-minute pieces, but I kind of want to increase that because I just feel like some stuff you can do it in 10 minutes. But I feel like now, since I feel like I've gotten a bit of a groove, I kind of want to try to challenge myself to do longer than 10 minutes. So that's where we're at. So again, as I said, I apologize for going on a tangent, but again, that's the name of this series. I wanted to specify why I chose the name Jejak Anggrek because I think it's a very like niche name. So Jejak basically means footsteps in Indonesian, and Anggrek means orchid. If you combine them together, which is what Minang people love doing, it has a very specific meaning to me. When I started thinking about what I wanted to post online and talking about this sort of vulnerability, I was very scared because, as you often hear, you know, the internet is permanent and, you know, everyone has a digital footprint. And instead of being scared, I really lean into that idea of, you know, having a digital footprint, and how my digital footprint, although questionable, is also tied to my thoughts and my ideas that I put out into the world. I mean, people use that saying all the time, and I can guarantee you that it's been said to you at least probably once, minimum, in your life. And I thought, what if I made it mine? Like, what if I named it Angie's Footsteps? Posting on YouTube, to me, is very much immortalizing my footsteps because I feel like every video is a moment I can't take back, a piece of me that I leave behind, and I want those pieces to mean something. So that's the first half of the name, and the second half, which is Anggrek, is, surprise, my actual name. So my actual first name, not Angie by the way, it's a nickname, is derived from the Indonesian word for orchid. And for a long time, I really hated that name because I felt like it was so grown. I felt that it was very long and it was very Indonesian. And living abroad, it felt like it was a sort of effort to explain to people what it is and that kind of stuff. And I think personally growing up in a, you know, predominantly white environment, I wish I had a more sort of easier to pronounce name, or a name that is more common, because I just wanted to blend in. My sister's name, I wouldn't say it's foreign, but it's very like easy to say. And so when I was younger, I had a lot of, it wasn't necessarily resentment because I didn't hate it per se. It was just more of an effort. And I just felt that my name was a burden. And honestly, the only reason why, or like not the only, but like a big part of the reason why I didn't enjoy that name growing up was because that was a name that like my parents would use when I was in trouble. So it brought back a lot of very difficult memories, to say the least. But over the last couple years, I've started to be more accepting and kind of reclaiming it, because living in Australia full time and being away from home, my name sort of became a reminder of where I come from. And it's sort of become an invisible thread that kind of keeps me back to Indonesia when I can't physically be there. And honestly, the story of how I got that name matters a lot to me, because when I was younger, I kind of was just like, yeah, who cares? But as I got older, being someone who really is driven by a message or a higher purpose and that kind of stuff, I sort of became very attached to my name. So when my parents had me, they honestly had no idea what to name me because obviously I already had my sister, and when my sister was being named, my parents like went through like books to try and find a name that they really both liked. And I really, honestly, I give it to my parents, because both my parents actually were very involved in the names of me and my siblings, but they kind of ate with the names, I'm not gonna lie. But then I guess with me, they were just like, girl, what do we name her? They were so confused. And so my mom, who is my paternal grandmother, who I've spoken about before, stepped in, being the very independent, strong Minang woman that she is. And she's always had a deep affection for flowers, and she's always really loved them. Therefore, she named me. And I remember that when I was a kid, she was so proud of that. Growing up, she would remind me all the time. She'd be like, I was the one who named you, you know? So it was kind of endearing how she said it like it was her greatest contribution. And I also find it more endearing because my cousin, who my grandma also named, I'm pretty sure, also shares like a similar name to me. Like our names aren't the same, but we have a similar name. And so it was sort of a mom's most proud moment to say that she named two of her granddaughters. And I'm not gonna lie, my cousin's pretty cool too. And even though the comparison sometimes is a bit nail-biting, I love hearing the fact that my mom named me and her. And we're the only two that my mom named in the family, I'm pretty sure. And so I just find that really sweet. So when I use this name or any sort of variation of it, I feel like I'm honoring her, because it's a thank you to her for helping me shape my identity before I even knew I had one to shape. And orchids to me as a symbol feel so deeply Indonesian. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Indonesia, but I do feel that orchids are one of the most popular flowers in Indonesia, and I would go as far to say that it might be, keyword might, the national flower. But we have a lot of flowers that are really popular. It's definitely one of those flowers that I look at and immediately think of home. One thing that I realize is that your name isn't just a label that they gave you. It has a story, and oftentimes it's a prayer. Like if you see how Balinese people name their kids, it's a very interesting story of the family and the experiences that shape that family to have that child. And you don't have to love it right away. I mean, it took me 20 odd years to actually come to terms with it. And honestly, sometimes it takes a while before it honestly starts feeling like yours. One thing I do realize is that reclaiming your name in whatever form that takes is a quiet act of self-acceptance. And honestly, for me, it's also a quiet act of honoring the love that my mom has for me. Look, I'm not gonna pretend that I haven't been whitewashed for living here for 10 odd years, because the reality is I have. And Honestly, sometimes more than I'd like to admit, but I still speak Indonesian fluently. It's just, I feel like I express myself more accurately and more eloquently in English, and I think you can probably tell by my accent. People mistake my accent for being American, and it's very far from it. I don't think I speak like an American. I honestly think I just speak like an international kid, like a kid who grew up speaking English in a non-English speaking country. And I honestly think that's where a lot of the beauty lies within this channel, because the name is Indonesian but the language is in English, and the content is supposed to be representative of both and lies in between. I feel like that existence or the intentionality is very much representative of me as a person, and more than anything, I want this channel to be representative of me rather than me faking, you know, my background or me faking my story or something. I feel like English also removes a barrier, because whilst I do want to speak to fellow Indonesians and be a voice for that, I also want to speak to a global audience, or even to just the Indonesian diaspora that, you know, grew up abroad and lost some of the language. Because as I said, I feel more comfortable discussing my thoughts and my ideas in English. I feel like English is the bridge. And again, as I said, I want to focus on authenticity, because I feel like in this day and age, authenticity is very difficult to find. And if I can just be a representative of that, not just for other people but for myself, I feel like that's enough for me. And again, the reason why I actually post is, whilst yes, I want to, you know, have conversations and hold discussions and, you know, make a safe space, curate a safe space that really brings people together, I also want it to be like a visual diary for myself. So in 5-10 years, I can look back on and say, oh my god, I was there. You know, like I have evidence, or I have proof of where I was at that time and how much I've changed. So instead of English being the divider, I feel like English is the bridge. So to be more specific, I am 25. I was born and raised in Jakarta, and I've lived in Melbourne for quite a while now. And it's funny because I genuinely don't know which to call home anymore. Sometimes it feels both. Sometimes it feels like neither, and sometimes I feel like it's somewhere in the middle. I grew up in that sweet spot before social media and like the internet like properly took over. Like my screen time as a child was the TV and the occasional Sims 2 session at my cousin's house, because I didn't have a computer back then. But I also grew up with the very early stages of the internet. So even though I didn't come out the womb knowing how to call my mom on an iPad, I still grew up around like computers and the internet, and with the shift happening in real time, I got to see both sides, the before and the after of technology. So I studied communications and psychology. Yes, I did a double degree. Yes, I'm crazy. And it broke my brain in kind of the best way, because it made me hyper analytical of the media that we consume and how it shapes the way we see ourselves and each other. Right now, I'm in school again, and I am studying digital and social media, and I feel like this was probably the best path or the best time for me to actually put myself out there, because even if I don't want to pursue this full time, I still have the experience, and again, I can have a visual diary for me to look back on with my growth and that kind of stuff. So to be more specific, I am definitely that person that reads between the lines. I love observing and noticing patterns, and I'm more often than not the wrong person to actually say it's not that deep to, because to me, everything is that deep and it gets tiring, but I find a lot of fulfillment and purpose in it. So heritage-wise, I don't know if I've touched on it, but for my dad, I am full Minang. And for my mom, this is where it gets a bit confusing, because she is predominantly Javanese, but she does have Sundanese mixed in it too. And that makes me, I hate this word, but it's the word that Indonesians use, pribumi, and I know it's so gaggy because the amount of people that mistake me for being Chindo. And let me just tell you, if I had a penny for every time someone mistook me as Chindo or thought that I was a Muslim or not like Indonesian, I think I would be probably in Indonesia's top 5 wealth-wise. I wish I was kidding, but it's story of my life. I used to be very like against it, and I used to be very angry and resentful, but now as I got older I kind of just learned to accept it. Like, this is the faith that I was born with, and it's a very interesting, I've developed a very interesting relationship with my faith, but that's for a separate video. But over the years I've learned to be really accepting, and I think again reclaiming my name is also reclaiming a part of my identity and my heritage. So I've definitely learned to be more accepting, and I honestly am very proud of both my heritages, you know, Javanese and Minang, a little bit of Sundanese. But yeah, I'm very proud of my heritage. And even though I don't speak any regional languages because my mom never taught me, I do want to learn at some point. I mean, other than my like immediate family, I don't really have anyone to speak like Minang with, for example, or even just Javanese. I maybe have 1 to 2 friends who can speak Javanese. But for now, in this chapter of my life, I am proud to carry the stories, the beliefs, the traditions, the customs, and I do my best with what I have. And this was like a very hard part of being accepting of it, because I thought that I was less than, or I thought that I couldn't say that I was, you know, Minang and Javanese because I didn't speak either of the regional languages. But I realized that doesn't make me any less, because I love the culture and that's what makes me me. So yeah, I've realized that this journey is never ending. And whilst that can be intimidating for some, I realize that I don't have to have it all figured out. And the biggest thing that I'm still figuring out is how to hold all that at once. Being Indonesian and growing up in Indonesia, but you know, my most formative years and even now still feels very Australian. And navigating the two identities and also the in-between. And honestly, I feel like that is what this channel is. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I got from this is identity isn't something that you finish figuring out, because there's not necessarily a destination towards it. And you don't have to have it resolved before you start talking about it, because showing up in the middle of it and talking about it is how you learn to be accepting of it and also to explore different parts of yourself. So what made me finally post is honestly my friends. You know who you are. And I'm really glad that my friends pushed me, because as a resident perfectionist, I would have definitely not published anything at all, because I would film it and I would kind of keep it to myself. But I realized that the findings or the journey I have within myself can actually be a source of support for other people. And to be honest, I've never been scared of a camera per se, because I have kind of spent my whole life in front of one, in the sense that when I was a kid, I loved watching like vlogs and stuff. And so I remember I begged my dad for like a camcorder when I was like 10, and that was my first sort of experience of, you know, being in front of a camera. And you know, having laptops and stuff for school, I would always, like, I lived in photo booth. Like, I'm not even kidding, like photo booth was my favorite. The fear itself was never filming, it was honestly publishing, because my biggest fear, and I'm still working through that fear, is being perceived, being judged, and being dismissed. And this year I made a decision, which is I am not gonna let fear be the reason I don't do things, because fear can be there, fear exists, but fear can be the passenger, because I'm not gonna let it drive the car. And so slowly but surely I put down my ideas, I press record, and I published it. And then I pressed publish again, and now there are 5-6 videos with more to come. And it became sort of exposure therapy for me, because again, I had a lot of fear in being seen. Like, if you asked me what my fear was last year, I would literally tell you it's being seen. And I think that's the reason why I sort of had glimpses or had bouts of posting and then not posting. And sometimes fear gets the best of you. And unfortunately, that's just the truth for me. And I've learned to kind of just make peace with it, because even if I can't eliminate fear, the only thing I can do is make my courage louder so that it overpowers the fear. This channel and me doing this is honestly a love letter to my younger self. A kid who didn't really blend in with, you know, people at school, people at home, whether that be my siblings or classmates, and a lot of the times I was talking to myself. And I know that sounds crazy, but that was just my reality. And I always loved making little videos because I felt that I had so much to say and I was very opinionated even as a kid, and I never really had a place to say it or a place to express my thoughts without any judgment. Most importantly, I never saw people like me. You know, whether that be Indonesian or Indonesian diaspora, and navigating identity across multiple cultures whilst also speaking to a global audience. And even now, I honestly still feel that it's rare. This channel is honestly for a younger version of me. And for anyone out there who recognizes themselves in what I'm describing, who's never really seen themselves be represented in spaces that they were in or content that they were consuming. For me, I've always wanted influence, not necessarily fame, because to me, there's a difference. Fame to me is being known, whereas influence is making someone think differently or feel less alone, or even to help someone find their own voice. I mean, you see it all the time, people saying that a song saved their life, and I've experienced that too, whether that be, you know, a creator or a piece of content or a voice that I feel just got it, and I want to be that for someone. Not because I particularly think that my voice is the word of gospel, because it absolutely isn't, but because I genuinely believe that I have a voice that's worth sharing. You don't need millions of followers to have a voice or to have a platform, and you don't need to have that in order for your voice to matter as well, because you need one person that hears your voice or your perspectives or watches your content that you made feel less alone. Now you might be thinking, why they get ready with me's and that kind of stuff. I tried the talking format, and that was my first video, the youngest child, and I can safely say that sitting in front of a camera for God knows however long I record for made me feel bored immediately. And makeup is therapeutic for me. It's something that I've genuinely loved ever since I was young, so combining that with talking felt right because I enjoy multitasking as well. And more than anything, I feel like it's just like a FaceTime with your friend sort of energy, and that's what I've always wanted, and that's what I've always related to. The content that I enjoy most is the content that I can see myself in. So something where it's like I'm FaceTiming a friend and we're having this conversation in real time. So you might also be thinking, why tangents? And my friends who follow my spam account know that my spam account has no theme whatsoever. One post is like the most emotionally devastating quote you've ever read in your life, and the next thing you know, it's me posting the fact that I literally left my me alone in Tomodachi life and she came back with a baby, and the dad is Michael Jackson. And I think that's just the biggest example of honestly who I am, because for me, tangents honor that randomness. And it also does something else. It invites depth and layers without promising a single lane. And call me your typical Sagittarius, but one of my life goals is to not be defined as one thing. In that sense of where, yes, I might be a daughter, a content creator, a sister, and all that kind of stuff, but I'm also a student and a lover and a friend, and because I don't want these videos to be purely one thing. And for me, the word tangent itself says that we're going somewhere and there might be a detour, and that's not a mistake because that's kind of the whole point. Now that I think of it, it's a sort of very endearing reflection on the way you look at life. On the surface, the topics might look completely unrelated. I mean, I talk about the pressure to be great, how Devi tirar mas fotos made me cry, the concept of ikhlas, but underneath all that is the human experience. And it's the stuff that nobody really ever talks about properly. I notice it's oftentimes the stuff that we feel in private and then wonder if we're the only ones feeling this way. And that's the thread. It's not a genre, it's not a niche, it's just things that are real, things that matter, and things that are worth discussing out loud together. What I'm promising you is that this is a space without judgment. Even if I disagree with you, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong, because the reality is, after 10 years of therapy, and I can say this, is that two truths can coexist, and I believe in that genuinely. I want these videos to be reflection rather than instruction, because I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to start the conversation and get out of the way, because what you do with that information and what you do with what you find is entirely yours. You can keep it to yourself, you can share it. Visibility is also a huge thing for me, because a lot of the times, as I said, people don't really see themselves in the content that they consume. And I'm not saying that I have to be entirely representative of who you are and what you believe in. But even if a percentage of my idea resonates with you, I think that's enough. And I promise honesty, because I'm here to be honest about the mess, the uncertainty, and the fact that I'm still figuring things out. And I'm not showing up here with all the answers, because realistically, I'm showing up here with the questions and we're figuring it out together. One thing that I hate more than anything is someone pushing their beliefs on me. And I am very intentional, and even with my friends and that kind of stuff, to not do that, because my perspective is only one of many. And I'm not gonna pretend that I have everything figured out, because I'm human and I'll get things wrong. But the only thing that I can do is to commit to my authenticity as best as I can. Another thing that I have a pet peeve of is being preachy. And so my goal is to always encourage your voice or amplify it, not to make mine the loudest in the room. Because if I'm being completely honest, every time I edit these videos, I literally like lose a couple years off my life, because I don't even like the sound of my own voice. So anyways, nuance matters. Nuance matters a lot to me. The world is complex, and us as humans are also complex. And I'm not here to flatten any of that or talk over that, because I know that whilst it's easier to see the world as black and white, realistically, most things are gray. Ever since I was a child, I was also told that my sensitivity was always a problem. I cared too much, or I felt too much, and I was always told to tone it down. And for a while I did, which is why I think that fear of being seen was very much amplified. But I realized that my sensitivity and my softness is the thing that lets me connect so deeply with other people, by taking care of them or listening to them properly. And I'm learning to direct some of that energy back to myself too, because these videos are as much as a reminder for me as they are for anyone watching. When I was younger, I had this really big fear of being seen as aggressive, and my therapist actually told me that I wasn't aggressive, I was assertive. And her explanation was the fact that aggression is having no awareness in how you impact others. And that's not me, and that's never been me. Ultimately, I just know what I want, and I'm learning to actually come to terms with that. Softness isn't a weakness, and sensitivity isn't a flaw. The parts of you that feel the most and notice the most and care the most are often parts of yourself that connect you most deeply with others. And it took me a while, but I realized that shutting them down was actually doing a disservice to myself. And just like my name, the best thing I could do was to reclaim it as well. I do want to be honest about something though, because yes, this is still scary, and I'm not gonna lie, I still have a lot of fear when it comes to just posting. Growing up, there was always this expectation for Indonesian women to be quiet, to be docile and uncontroversial. And maybe it's my heritage, maybe it's just my upbringing, or maybe it's just my characteristics, but I never really subscribed to that. I was always opinionated and outspoken, but over time, with life experiences that I wouldn't want to relive, I shunned that part of myself, because I was always told to keep it in and to prioritize harmony over authenticity. And this channel is me reclaiming that narrative, because there is definitely a version of me who had so much to say yet kept it hidden, and I'm opening the door for her. Not aggressively, not recklessly, but just honestly, and I'm doing it on my own terms. I'd like to think that my Sumatran genes deserve the credit for the initial fire, but it's definitely taken years of work, whether that be therapy or life experiences or just soul searching, to be honest, to intentionally choose to challenge that fear rather than hide behind it. So if you're watching this and you have something to say but you're scared, just know that I was there too, and I'm honestly still there too. The fear doesn't go away. It's still there, but what I choose to do is to choose to be brave and let that voice of bravery be louder than the fear. If you do choose to post your own stuff and create your own content, just know that being perceived is terrifying and publishing in itself is terrifying, and I encourage you to do it anyway. Not because that the fear isn't real, but because what you have to say is more real. Okay, so that's me. 5-6 videos in and you finally know who you've been talking to. And if you've been here from the start, I genuinely thank you, and it honestly means more than you know. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more. I have very, very interesting videos coming up, and I'm very, very excited for them because I feel like now my initial sort of apprehension has sort of dissolved bit by bit, and this ain't even my final form. There's still so much more to come. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, thank you for spending the time with me anyway. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hype. Still don't know what that is, so I think I need to do a little bit of research, but if you'd like to, please share it to people who you think might enjoy it, and it helps more people find this channel too. Yeah, take care of yourself. This has been fun and this has been a lot, and let me know your thoughts because I love hearing it. Either leave a comment, or I think I'm gonna start posting on my Instagram, and that will be at jejak.anggrek, and that's the same name as this page, and it's always in the description. Sending you lots of love, and again, just know that we're on this journey. It's all about the journey, not the destination. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I will see you soon. Bye.